let's dive into a question for the Friendzy advice column. Okay. Melissa Carter, are you ready? Let me pull it up here.
I'm ready.
Okay. This is coming from Karen.
Oh, and while you do this, let me just say really quickly, if this is a new segment of the show,
yeah,
if you have any questions, need any advice, it literally is like an advice column. It's like a Dear Friendzy. So Melissa at thefriendzy.com, Jenn at thefriendzy.com. Sorry.
yeah. And
Sorry,
you
Karen.
can, any way you want to reach out to us through Facebook, DM us on Instagram. We would love to throw it out there. And of course, we can change your name and details to keep you protected. This is from Karen. It's Krin, which is important.
Okay.
She says, I want to legally change my name, but I'm afraid it will hurt my mom's feelings. I've never felt like it fit me, even before the whole don't be a Karen thing. She says, my mom spelled it weird to be unique, but it's just a headache. She says, my middle name is Chelsea, and I have often gone by the nickname KC. So I want to legally change my name to Casey. Should I change it? Should I tell her or not tell her? I think she will feel insulted.
I had
What would you do?
I had a good friend Karen growing up, because I would think Karen if I saw it spelled that way because that's how she spelled her name, or
Mhm.
it does. She's still alive. Okay. Not to put her in past tense. Sorry, Karen. So anyway,
It is a bit confusing though, Karen.
yes. Well, Mr. Carter, before I give the advice, Mr. Carter the other night said to me, how would you feel if I changed my name? He's 7 years old.
Really?
And I just, without missing a beat, said, well, what would you want to change it to? And then he kind of stopped and he's like, no, I want to keep my name. So he had heard it somewhere, seen it on a video. I don't know. He was bringing something from the outside world into our house and asked me about it. And I said that, and this is my advice for Karen, is the fact that you are the owner of your life. You are the CEO of your life.
Mhm.
And I am a believer that whatever makes you happy and doesn't hurt other people, then is okay by me. And you talk about hurting your mother's feelings. Well, I mean, Katie and I, and I'm sure Jen and Grant, every parent, when they're naming their child, it's usually this long process. It's you know, sometimes a gut wrenching process because you want to make it so perfect, right? You're giving a
Mhm.
human being the name they will be going by the rest of their
It's a
life. So they're
big responsibility. I remember
huge
feeling the
responsibility.
weight of that. Yeah.
Yes. And it took us, I mean, we knew the middle name before we knew the first name of our son because it was that important, right? We thought that he would be named, and he does go by his first name, but but I've even thought he has the option to change that. My brother goes by his second name because
Mm.
his first name was the same as my father's and he wanted to differentiate himself. Um, but even my parents differentiated him as a young child. So anyway, my brother goes by his middle name. Um, but anyway, I think you should. If that's what it's a long process. It's like a tattoo. Now you have to really think this through because once it's done, it's done. So, but if you have been struggling with this name, I don't see because a rose by any other name smells just as sweet as Shakespeare would say. So, as an adult, you get to do whatever you want to, and then you can just explain to your parents why. But I think as an adult, so many times we think, what would our parents think? My parents are gone, and I still think, what would my parents think about certain things?
Mhm.
But your parents raised you to be an adult. And as an adult, you shouldn't have to worry about what your parents think for you to do something. So, if Mr. Carter changed his name, I would not be offended. I would not.
Really?
I would not. Yes, if from his gut and his soul, I mean, I just want him to be happy. And if he was happier with a different name and it had more meaning to him or it was symbolic in some way, I would still love him just the same. It would not change how I feel about him.
Mhm. And it wouldn't offend you. Now,
No.
would it offend his other mother?
I can't answer for her, but I have a feeling that it would. I think she ultimately would want him to be happy too. But since she picked the first name, I picked the second name, and obviously we call
Ooh,
him
then
Mr.
what if he switched it to the second name? Then it becomes a competition between who picked what name.
No, I think ultimately she would just wanna be
Come
happy.
around.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Katie, I mean, I tease Katie a lot, and she's kind of, I mean, we're both from redneck roots, so we're both little hothead Southern ladies, but, at the end of the day, though, she's much better at letting things go than I am, so I think she might be hurt for 5 seconds, and then she'd be, "Okay, let's
Move on.
watch a
Yeah.
Georgia football game."
Yeah. Okay, for name changing, I have 2 stories. One is that my husband says he went through a phase when he was younger. His name is Grant, which I love because it's not super common, but it's easy.
Mhm.
He knew a kid in school named David who was the coolest kid, and so he had, like, a year or 2 of his life he wanted to be David, and he really
Oh.
tried to get his family to call him David, and it did not work.
Aw,
It's
he wanted to
so
be the cool
cute. Yeah, he
kid.
just wanted to be cool, which I think is so sweet. Anyway, I
Sweet.
was like,
No, Grant's a
"But
very strong
I'm
name
like,
too. I
"Honey,
have
I love your name. You gotta go with it." He's like, "I've come to realize that I like it now, but I didn't when I was a kid. I wanted to be David
Aw,
so badly."
that's so
Which I
cute.
think is adorable.
But
So,
see, again, that's a case where
hopefully
you don't change your name because of that. That's not a good enough reason to go through the whole process with the
right.
Social Security office and with change your name everywhere. Like that's a
Yeah.
lot of paperwork. I don't think you understand any 401k accounts, anything you got with your legal name. You got to
Everything.
change
Change it
everything.
all. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, and, for Mr. Carter, it may be a phase just like Grant, so that's why I wanted to tell you if
Oh, right.
it
Well,
could
I
just
don't
be
know
a
where he
little
got it from
phase.
because when I told him, I said, "What do you want to change it to?" He didn't tell me. He didn't tell me what he wanted it to be. He just said, "No, I like my name." So I don't know why he backed down for
Mhm.
after
Just
my
thought
response.
about it for a second, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have another friend who changed his name after his mother died. He said he'd never felt like his name fit him. His mom passed, and she passed kinda suddenly. She had, a short battle with cancer, so by the time they had discovered it, it was pretty far along, and as soon as she passed, he changed his name, and everyone was like, "Okay, is this a reaction? Is this like a mourning thing? Is this like a midlife crisis thing? You lost your mom. Is this some sort of emotional reaction?" But he has stuck with it for the rest of his life. So I guess he really didn't feel like that original name fit him, but it felt more free after mom passed to go
Mhm.
change it. So
Right.
so that's all I can really offer for Karen, but I would just hate if you changed it because of the whole "don't be a Karen" thing,
Oh, that
like
was my
that,
first thought, yeah.
like
That'll go away.
it
That
is
we'll
a
pick on
passing
somebody else.
trend. It's not something that's gonna stick forever. It's just a right now thing.
Well,
So if it's like
I do think though that Karen will like Melissa. So Melissa was very, very popular in 1970 in the early 70s, and
yep.
then nobody names their child Melissa.
Same with Jennifer.
So I
Jennifer,
will
super popular, late 70s, early 80s. Nobody names their kid Jennifer anymore.
so in 20, 30 years, when you hear Melissa, you know it's an old lady.
Yep.
And so with Karen, I do think that's what's also gonna happen is that people are not naming their children Karen now because of this whole thing, and then Karen will end up being an old lady name. An old
But
white lady name, I guess.
but then it'll come back around and be cool again in a couple more generations because, there are a lot of kids now that have what we thought of as old lady names, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like I know a lot of like pearls and olives and rubies and
Right. Yes.
there are a lot of like older lady names that are back now and they're now in kindergarten.
Yeah. So maybe Melissa
So
will come back. I don't know.
Melissa could come back, Jennifer could come back, and guess what? Karen could come back in the best way. So I think, if you've never felt like it was really you and you want to change it, I think you go for it. Like Melissa said, you're a grown ass woman and you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But if you got to really think long and hard. Are you changing it because the whole don't be a Karen, which basically means don't be
I
a
know.
curmudgeon,
Well,
right?
and not
Is
to
that the
extend
right
it
word?
curmudgeon. Yeah.
Curmudgeon?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of it in a nutshell, right?
A racist curmudgeon. It's not
Right.
just curmudgeon, it's a racist curmudgeon, is a
Ugh.
Karen. But also, one last thing too is a parent, the reason there's a lot of responsibility on you is because you're trying to name a person that isn't here yet. Like we
Right.
named our children before we knew their personality. Like animals, I wait to name them until I know their personality. But a
Right.
baby, you don't have the same luxury. So that's the other thing is if you don't like your name, your parents tried their best, but they didn't know you well enough.
Right.
Um to do, maybe we should wait to name kids until they're a year old. They just
Oh,
have some kind of stamp
no.
on them, and then when they're a year old, we know exactly who they
No.
are. No?
No.
All right.